Hello, my name is Cataline Parrott, and welcome to Project 4, the final project of my class Intro into American Pop Culture. Just starting out, I feel like throughout the semester, I'm actually really proud of everything I've created. Like all these podcasts, I absolutely love this class. It's just extremely fun creating these podcasts and just taking a deep dive into like pop culture because it affects everyone. It's everywhere. Everything I've analyzed, sorry, I always mess up that word, is mainly focused on class because everything has to do with class. I tried hard to do the readings every week and always found the topics like really interesting. Every week when I had to share on the forums for the class, I was always able to just see how many people actually were like-minded and agreed with what I was saying. And reading other people's thoughts, I was like, damn, I have the same ideas as them is actually quite amazing. The main topics that stay in my mind after taking this class is mainly the idea of the single story and how stereotypes come from people not getting the full picture. I'm gonna butcher this name. Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. We watched her TED Talk about the single story, and it just makes you think. Like everything that I've encountered throughout my whole life, if you're really interested in something, you need to look into the full story. Because not only would you sound ridiculous if you started talking about something that you knew almost nothing about, but you think you know about it. So it really makes you question everything. From now on, I always question everything and I don't take anything for the full truth until I've done research. And even when I look at something, I'm like, damn, that can't be true. Like, that's like only the half of it. Some of the main things we focused on throughout the semester was the idea of otherness. This is mainly just how majorities and minorities interact with each other. Throughout history, pop culture has not been very kind to people who don't fit in to the status quo, people who are that of otherness, different. In the documentary Ethnic Notions, it's about how people of color have had a very bad time throughout history with the caricatures of the mammy, the Sambo, and the uncle, and the Jim Crow character, where white men would tear up their clothes, get rid of their dialects, and just dance around in blackface, mimicking a almost caricature like of the people of color culture. And the use of these caricatures of people of color having big red lips and always being very dark and getting into comic violence led to a lot of them actually experiencing violence in real life. These symbols, these amusing stereotypes, turned sour and became symbols of hate. But in the 1960s, with Martin Luther King and the brutal reality of racism coming out, things started to get better. These pictures of racism, racial caricatures started to die down, and people started to realize that this stuff was awful. One of them recently was the maple syrup brand Aunt Jemima and the use of the Mammy as their mascot. They recently got rid of it because they realized that the picture of the Mammy was a symbol of hate. So pop culture is becoming more aware of these really racial stereotypes and these caricatures, but throughout history, they've had a hard time. Another thing was economic censorship. Now it has to do with otherness, but in a different way. It has to do with class and gender. In the documentary, this film is not yet rated, Kimberly Price, the director of Boys Don't Cry, starts talking about how her movie received an NC-17 rating because it showed a woman orgasming, but it wasn't just a woman orgasming, it was a very long scene, and it showed her pleasure, and she realized that she received this rating because women in media don't usually get to show pleasure. Media and film is a man's world. You have movies written by men for the male experience, and a lot of the times women don't get to express this. So gender's a big part of otherness too, how women are treated differently than men. The way they are represented in media is way different. They're usually sexualized, and if not, they're shown as, well, the bitch. If they're in power, they're not good people. There's not a fair representation of women in the media. And of course, as time is going on and recently, there has been more fair representation, but there's still a long way to go with gender. Another is the filthy, the filthy 15 court case, where there was a list of music that was excessively violent and very explicit, and these mothers, they went to court saying that this music is not good for people to listen. And I grew up listening to Twisted Sister. Maybe it's the fact that the Goofy Goober song at the very end of SpongeBob is a song by Twisted Sister, or at least a little parody. Um, but the song We're Not Gonna Take It was on that Filthy 15 list, and I love that song. And I never thought of it as a explicit song, a bad song. But I guess in 1985, it was a big deal. So the lead singer of Twisted Sister went to court, and he wrote this whole speech about how these songs are not bad, and a lot of the times the songs are not about what the people think. So again, it's like the otherness of people thinking that these songs are terrible. They're different. That's what it is. It's rock and roll and it's different for the time, so people fear it. But it goes again with a single story, because people would listen to the song, maybe like a little snippet of it, and they would hear the bad part, but they wouldn't get the full story of what the song's about. I believe he was explaining about how this one song was pretty explicit about a hospital, and people took it as something about like murder. But in reality, he wrote it for a bandmate who was undergoing surgery. The thing is, people don't get the full story, and they want to judge completely on just little snippets of what they hear. So I feel like a big part of otherness and how people were mistreated is because they didn't get the full story. The single story is completely enveloped in pop culture. A lot of these stereotypes and the idea of otherness uh, is just because people don't get the full story. People of color are not represented, and the way they are is that they get these stereotypes. Women as well, they're not represented as except as sexual creatures. So when you see a woman having pleasure on film, you're going to think, oh wow, that's different. So it's wrong. And then again with like this rock and roll and the Filthy 15, it's different. But it's not wrong, because people don't want to look into it and find out exactly what it's all about. One of the most interesting things actually we discussed this semester is the idea of the American dualities, or the contradictions in pop culture. The duality myth is pretty much that people want to be the official hero, but also the outlaw. People in American culture, by Colin, in chapter 4, it says that people want to be original, but not so original they don't fit in to society. It seems very hypocritical there, that people want to fit in, yet they want to stand out. I see this a lot in the American dream. When people say, oh, strive for the American dream, which originally just meant have a family, nuclear family, husband, wife, 2 kids, have a good job, possibly a little dog, have a white picket fence house. Stereotypical American dream. But that idea is so hypocritical, because in today's society, 2021, you kind of have to start off in a good position to achieve any of this. As the saying goes, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's very just that duality of people just saying, yes, you can achieve anything. But in reality, people born with a silver spoon are going to be a lot more well off than people who even try super hard and they still don't get anywhere. I think this just suggests about society that we're all hypocritical. Everyone just wants a little bit of hope. So if you're going to believe in this like American dream, and you could believe in like these silly things that give you hope, what's the harm? You know, if you want to have this hope and you want to work hard to achieve something, even if you don't, at least you'll be happy doing it. At least you'll have that hope of achieving it. That's why you get these like false statements. Hope is a big thing, I feel, in American culture. Even if it's like the thing about people wanting to fit in yet stand out. It's because people want to be accepted by everyone. People want that hope, that acceptance, yet they don't want to be compared to anybody else. They want to be original. I feel like this impacts me a lot, because I feel like I'm going to be trying really hard. And in the end, a hope only gets you so far. Working hard just gets you so far. You're going to have a little bit of luck. And again, I want to fit in. Because when I go to like the supermarket or anything, when I stand out, it makes me uncomfortable. When people stare at me, it makes me uncomfortable. Yet, I also want to stand out. I want to be different because I don't want to be compared to anybody else. I don't want to have people say, oh, well, she's just like that person. That's not what I want. Throughout this whole semester, I feel like the main thing that just sticks out to me that has to do with everything is the idea of the single story. And I talked about this throughout the whole podcast, but I feel like it's such an important thing to talk about, to teach people, is that a lot of these problems come out of the single story. They come out of these people thinking, I feel like Twitter is a big problem. Not to go off on a tangent, but people on Twitter, they'll look at a story and they'll only look at one side of it. And they'll think, oh man, I'm an expert now because I read this like one little tweet. But in reality, you have to look at the big picture. You have to look at everything. And I feel like a lot of problems could be solved if people took the time and actually looked at the bigger picture. They didn't focus on this one little thing. I mean, that's where you get stereotypes, you get all these problems. I feel like right now, I'm very optimistic about pop culture. I feel a lot of representation is going into film. There's a lot more changes that are going, and you see people who are represented as real people, not caricatures, not just cartoons of themselves. And it makes me optimistic for the future that we're going to have films that are more than just stereotypes. But I think the most important thing right now is that in media literacy, we need to teach people that just because they hear something online doesn't make it true. And just because they read one tweet, just because they watch one YouTube video, just because they watch one film, it doesn't make them an expert. It takes time to learn anything. And in reality, I think people just need to, again, not to keep nailing this into the ground, but you need to look at the bigger picture. Everyone just needs to look at the bigger picture and take time, because with media being so easy to access, people think they're experts on everything now. But I think the most important thing to teach people about media literacy is that they need to take time, and if they're interested in anything, to actually look into it. Anyways, that was Project 4. Sorry for going off on a little tangent there at the end, but I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for a great semester.